Hey everyone, my name is Kevin, and this is my story of learning English. This stage, I call it confusion. I pretty much started my journey of learning English like the majority of you guys. Pretty average school. Only difference is probably I was way below average. 1 or 2 months in the first semester in middle school, I still wasn't able to recite the alphabet letters. I pretty much sucked all the way from middle school to high school, and fast forward to university, I was still terrible. It took me 5 or 6 tries just to pass CET4. But I didn't really care that much. I blame everything to the fact that I was not working hard enough. So I thought if I start studying English hard enough, I would definitely get better, right? Until the last year in university, I realized I definitely need to become more serious about it because I majored in international business and trade, and I was supposed to speak at least, average English, being able to communicate a little bit. Otherwise, I'll probably become a jobless immediately after graduation. I kind of got scared and I started taking English seriously, and I hired a Canadian teacher online. So we had conversation, I believe 15 to 20 minutes, 3 times every week. It improved my listening a little bit, but other than that, I don't think it helped really a lot. Fortunately, I found a job after graduation in an international business company. But just working for about, several months, I decided to quit my job. I just so wanted to improve my English. I have no idea why I was so obsessed with improving my English, but I just so wanted to. So I decided to go abroad, but I couldn't afford going to Western countries like the US, Canada. So eventually I decided to go travel around Southeast Asia. And my reason was, there might be a lot of foreigners traveling there, so I might be able to talk to them. And also Filipinos, they had the reputation of speaking English pretty well. So I also went to the Philippines, and I actually enrolled in a local university, signed up for a language program. So I did that for a couple of months, I believe 4 months. The program, it was not very helpful. By the end, I was kind of like, I actually learned much more efficiently myself as compared to going to those lessons. So I kind of stayed at the hostel and started using comprehensive input, N+1, or that kind of thing. It was kind of popular back then, probably a little bit overrated. Anyway, after that, I went back to China. Several months later, I took IELTS test. So I was able to score 7.5 in IELTS, 8 in listening and reading, and 7 in writing and speaking. Well, just from a score point of view, I was pretty decent, but in fact, my level was kind of like in a conversation, I was able to understand people, but that's pretty much it. And then I would go like, yes, I understand you, and here is my opinion. And then I state my opinion and move on to the next question. So basically, I was not able to make joke. I was not able to be funny. I was basically not cool. And fundamentally, I think it's because I was not able to connect with people in a conversation. The conversation, pretty much all of them stayed on a very surface level. And that really upset me because I thought I invested so much, I tried so hard. I even went to Southeast Asia to study English, but I still couldn't quite get there. I was so frustrated, and I thought I pretty much tried everything. What else can I try? Maybe immersing myself in a complete English-speaking environment, and that is only possible by going to a Western country. So I decided to go to New Zealand and Australia, apply for working holiday visa, and went to New Zealand, stayed there for half a year, and then went to Australia. But I didn't really improve at all. Actually, I think my English level kind of degraded, but my Chinese kind of got a little bit better because there are so many, Chinese people living overseas, and I got talked to them. I got listened to different kind of accents. So yeah, that's kind of funny, but I don't want to blame, to say immersing yourself in a English-speaking country doesn't really help. I think it's really because I was just physically there, but mentally and socially, I wasn't really there. I was not ready for it. I was just so busy working every single day, trying to save up some money to pay for my future tuition fees, because I've already made up my mind to further my study to pursue my master's degree. I think that pretty much marks the end of this stage. It was full of confusions. I didn't really know how to improve English. I just, hear a method here and there online and then tried it out. Sometimes I was so diligent, working so hard, but not seeing any result. So it was kind of frustrating, but that was the first stage. Yeah. That stage, I call it hustle through. So after working holiday ended, I decided to stay in Australia to pursue my master's degree in TESOL, teach English to speakers of other languages, because I thought if I learn how to teach English, I'll definitely be able to improve my own English, right? But that was kind of wishful thinking. I was totally wrong, because the course heavily focuses on teaching instead of learning. So I learned a lot of stuff about curriculum design, assignment assessment, and teaching methodology, etc., but I didn't really get to discover the secret of improving your English on your own. So the first year, I was basically coping. I pretty much struggled all the way through. And the second year, that's when the real change happened. So at that time, I came across a YouTuber. Basically, what the guy was saying was, if you want to improve your English, you gotta stop thinking English in vocabulary and grammar. So you gotta stop processing English through a word-by-word manner or analyzing grammar. You need to process English through chunks. So listen to chunks and speak in chunks, because that's how native speakers speak and how they listen. You gotta match your way of processing English as they do. So that's very, very essential. It kind of makes a lot of sense, and I think it's pretty solid, because once you change your way of processing English from word by word to chunk by chunk, this will significantly improve your accuracy, your authenticity, because everything has been pretty much pre-assembled before you even speak them out. It's already being put together. That means you have a less chance to make a grammatical error or to say something that's pretty Chinglish. I don't mean accent, but I mean authenticity. Like if it's an authentic expression, it's already been put together by native speakers, you are less likely to make an error. And also it will significantly improve your fluency, because you are speaking English chunk by chunk. That means a chunk is one unit of information, so you're sort of speaking this as one single unit, and everything will start flowing smoothly together. I've never heard about anything like that, so I started implementing it. And also at the same time, I was, starting getting into the third semester, the second year. I was writing a lot of papers and also dissertations. And on top of that, I had to attend some other units. So a lot of assignments and also placements. My day just got busier and busier. And I was like, I can't keep on going anymore. I definitely need to figure out a way to manage my life. So I started looking at productivity courses and how to build habits, those kind of videos and books. I researched a lot and I consumed a lot of information in regard to that. And eventually, I sort of built my own productivity system. So I was able to be on top of pretty much everything. That in turn improved my English learning efficiency. So I was able to study chunks for about 6 months consecutively, and I really saw a huge progress, especially in listening and speaking. And the progress that I made in this 6 months alone is a lot bigger than everything that I learned, all the progress I put together in the previous decades. And I'm not even exaggerating. That's how powerful it is changing your language processing habits. It is true that I was making progress, but every day seemed to be super, super busy, and I felt like I was fighting forgetting curve every single day. If you're familiar with the forgetting curve, the first day you learn something, you feel like you actually know it, but you start forgetting pretty quickly. So you have to constantly revise, do spaced repetition to flatten the forgetting curve. And that was exactly how I felt. I was like trying to flatten the forgetting curve every single day, but the amount of chunk just started accumulating. There was just more chunks that I had to revise every day, and the chunk that I had to revise was not as easy as when it just started out. It was a lot more difficult, so I just couldn't cope. Yeah, I just couldn't deal with it. Even with this productivity, I couldn't do it anymore. So at the end of the 6 months, I was experiencing a severe study burnout. I just couldn't keep on going. So I took a break, and that break lasted quite a while, several months. But isn't all of our English study full of up and down, on and off, on and off, on and off? It's not always on. It's always on and off. But something happened in the next stage. I never stopped learning again. I was always on, and I never felt really exhausted or tired, mentally exhausted. Not really. I just wanted to learn more because I genuinely wanted to. So that stage, I call it the big picture. And that happened after I graduated from my master program and I decided to pursue my PhD degree. Haven't really taken the action yet, but I was thinking about it. But I was like, I kind of got a little bit tired of TESOL. Don't get me wrong, I'm still very interested in language learning and teaching. It's just that I realized I was more interested in cognitive science, psychology, behavior, basically how people acquire a new skill and how some people are able to acquire a new skill a lot faster than others. How did they manage to do that? I'm really curious about that. So I started reading papers, articles, books, sign up several courses. I think I actually did a lot more reading during this period of time, even though I did a whole lot of reading during my master. It's TESOL, a lot of papers. But anyway, I was fortunate enough to come across a theory called Bloom's taxonomy. Basically, it says there are orders in learning. Not all learning is equal. Some are high order, some are low order. Low order learning is very, very inefficient, and that includes memorization, basically real learning. If your way of learning English is through memorization, it's very ineffective. Actually, long-term wise, I wouldn't say it's effective at all. It's just not even close because it requires zero mental power. It's just memorization. One level above that, you have understanding. You often hear people say to fully master something, you have to understand it. But understanding is still very, very cheap learning, very low order learning, because it's just recognition. You see something, you look at a word, and you are like, well, I understand it. I know what it means, and you move on to the next word. There is very, very minimum effort going into it, so it requires minimum engagement, minimum, mental power to process the information. And as a result, it's not as effective as you may think. So understanding is really overrated. And what we want to do is not really abandon memorization and understanding altogether. We still need them. But what we want to do is really to skip these two steps and jump into higher order learning directly. And higher order learning includes apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. Create is kind of difficult. Creating something is like you taking the bits of information that you acquired somewhere else, here and there, and try to put them together as the original thing that you learned, or trying to come up with something that's completely new that you could call your own. That's very, very difficult to do. So the most economical way to go about higher order learning is really through analyzing and evaluating. So analyzing and evaluating pretty much is about rearranging information in a more clear, logic, and simple way so that they can stand out in your brain, and the connections between information are just so strong. There are so many connections that you won't be able to forget it even if you want to. And I can honestly say that now when I study something, I look at it once, I study it once, I won't be able to forget it. I just remember like 70 to 80% after this one-time learning, and a month later, I still will be able to recall roughly around 70 to 80% of the stuff that I learned. That's just how powerful higher order learning is. And you may wonder, how's that possible? Well, that's because for higher order learning to happen, lower order learning will just naturally happen. To evaluate something, to analyze something, to apply something, you have to understand. If you don't understand it, you won't be able to do higher order learning. So if you just skip the lower order learning steps and start with higher order learning, the lower order learning will just happen naturally. That's why it is possible to remember things so efficiently. Basically, everything that I talked about here is called encoding. So essentially, better encoding equals better memorization. If you want to remember something, the key is not to memorize it many times. That kind of helps, but long-term wise, you're going to forget about it. What's really efficient here is improve your encoding quality, and that can only be done through higher order learning. So better encoding equals better memory. That's a key. And that really changed the game for me. Apart from Bloom's taxonomy, I also learned to Kolb's learning experimental cycle. Kolb's is really the guideline of developing a growth mindset in your life. A growth mindset is, I just couldn't emphasize how important it is. It really teaches me to open my heart, to embrace failure, because failure is a faster way to get better. Without failures, you won't be able to learn. And this growth mentality brought up by Kolb's experimental cycle together with Bloom's taxonomy, higher order learning, gave me a lot of confidence. And for the first time in my life, I felt so confident. I was like, if I really wanted to acquire a new skill, I could make it happen. I could definitely make it happen. And for the first time in my life, I was no longer running away from failure, running away from trying new things. I was opening my heart, embrace failures. But am I really? Not really. I didn't really have everything figured out yet, but I think I was kind of on the right path. And something else happened in the next stage, completely changed the trajectory of my journey of learning English and my life. This stage I call it have fun. Throughout my journey of learning English, I had this fear for failure. I was afraid of making mistakes. I was afraid of talking to foreigners. I was afraid of how other people might think of me. Will they perceive me as silly or stupid? What if I do this wrong? What if I do that wrong? What if this? What if that? There were just so many doubts. But I so wanted to get better English. So there will always be a little voice inside of my head telling myself, hey, do you want to get better or not? If you want, go ahead and do it. Put yourself together, get your ass off, just suck it if you want to get better. Sometimes I did overcome my fear. I got out of my comfort zone. I go ahead and do it. But it was so exhausting because the next time I will still be fearing the same thing. And later I find there were just so many fears in my life because I'm a human being and I would never be able to overcome all of them. So I felt like I was fighting a battle I would never be able to win. And that never changed until this year, 2022. It's only March, but these 3 months, a lot of things happened, completely changed my life. I reflected my life a lot, and I thought there's really no cure for that problem. There's no cure for fear, because fear will just exist. We're human beings, and the only way that we might be able to make the situation a little bit better is to approach it in a different way, through curiosity. Instead of thinking about overcoming our fears, instead of thinking about getting out of comfort zone, when you are wanting to have a conversation with a foreigner, but you are afraid of doing that, stop thinking about overcoming the fear. Start thinking about what he's doing here. I find this guy pretty cool. I want to know more about him. Start getting curious about that guy and just go ahead and have a conversation with him to find the answer that you're looking for. A lot of things will just naturally happen without you even realizing it happened. That's the power of curiosity. Once you start getting curious about things, you just naturally do it without anybody pushing you, without this little voice inside of head telling you, go do it, suck it up. No, you just naturally do it. And I think this not only applies to English learning, it applies to life as well. You want to be curious about strangers. You want to be curious about whatever you're learning. You want to be curious about your life. You want to be curious about your loved ones. Once you lose your curiosity on someone you love, your relationship dies. Once you lose your curiosity on something that you do, you no longer do it with your heart. Once you lose your curiosity towards the world, you die, even though you're physically alive. And I think life really is a choice. It's either you decide to go about your life with the mentality of overcoming your fear, getting out your comfort zone, or you decide to be curious towards the world. Yeah, so that's basically the last stage, and I consider this as the opening of a new era. It just made my life a lot more interesting, and I'm not really fearing about the future anymore, and I'm not regretting about what happened in the past, because it really is not something that I could change. I totally don't have control over that, and I'm really excited about what the future has in store for me, because I'm full of curiosity now. Yeah. So these are the 4 stages in my learning journey, and just to be clear, it's not that I complete one stage and I just completely forgo that stage and move on to the next one. No, that's not true. They are actually a whole. They work together, just like we become the person who we are now because what happened in the past. We don't abandon the past just because we think they are a waste of time. Instead, we build upon the past. Sometimes when we don't see the result, it's not our efforts going to waste. It's sometimes because we have the wrong expectation to believe that efforts are meant to give us results. No, efforts are not meant to give us results. Efforts are meant to show us a direction. The more we try, the more effort we put in, the clearer the road will become. Even if it's a road that we've never traveled before, or if it's a road that no one has ever traveled before, it will become clear if we keep on putting in the effort. For me, my story of learning English is really more than that. It's a story of finding myself. I hope this video gives you a little bit different perspective towards language learning. And my name is Kevin, and this is my story.